Let's get to this. New questions this morning as President Biden says he's happy to debate President Trump. Those are his exact words. But still unclear is when or even if those debates will happen and what the format would even look like, as media outlets have been pushing for a one-on-one showdown in this close contest. Let's bring in James Golden, also known as Bo Snerdley, radio host at WABC Radio and also author. Bo, it's good to have you. President Trump, you and I have talked about this. President Trump has repeatedly said, bring it on. He's offered up 3 different dates to do so. Chances we actually see this showdown before November?
I think you might see it if the Biden camp becomes any less afraid and says, okay, we have to do it. The poll numbers are such that we actually need a debate to happen. It would be what concerns me more, who is going to be the moderator? How are these debates going to be conducted? You have had debates in this country where you have political hacks posing as journalists, moderating debates with their obvious biases. What I would like to see is some new blood brought into these debates. I'd like to see more time for the candidates to engage with each other instead of these journalists making their own political statements and trying to make their own careers out of it. I'd like to see some honest journalism in these debates. I nominate you. I think, and I'm not kidding.
Oh, Bo.
I think that NewsNation, I think that NewsNation would be a perfect place to host a debate. I also think that we need to look at some of the other print media, not the big print media, but print media in some of these locations that actually have concerns about this race and what the outcome is.
Well, yeah, I mean, we would love that. We would be equal to the task, that is for sure. But yeah, to your point, somebody without a long history of bias is needed for a showdown like this. My other question to you, Bo, so many voters have already made up their minds, right? I mean, even for the double doubters who don't love either of these front runners, most probably know what game time decision they'd make at the polls. So would a debate be more for the people or more for the press?
I think the debates are still more for the people. There are a lot of people, look, these are both very well-known figures, as you say. But I think a debate always gives a fresh chance for the American public to review their choices. And I think it's important for the record, too, to put both candidates or 3 candidates on the record as where their positions are and what they are telling the American people that they will do for the country. So I think debates are a very, very important part of the process. I would hate to see a presidential season go by where there isn't a debate between the major candidates.
Let's also talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He also wants in on these debates as he's clashed with former President Trump on social media. I wanted to share some of these with viewers, too, Bo. Trump posting this. He said, quote, RFK Jr. is a Democrat plant, a radical left liberal who's been put in place in order to help crooked Joe Biden, calling a vote for Kennedy, quote, a wasted protest vote. Well, Kennedy now firing back, tweeting this: President Trump's rant against me is a barely coherent barrage of wild and inaccurate claims that should best be resolved in the American tradition of presidential debate. So, Bo, does this back and forth indicate that former President Trump believes the recent NBC poll that Kennedy would take more votes from him than President Biden? Does that indicate that he believes that that's truth?
I really do believe that they took the bait on this. As you know, I questioned the methodology of the NBC poll. It was with registered voters, not likely voters, and it was with a smaller sample base. So there was a reason that that poll was done. And I think right now we may be exactly what the pollsters wanted to happen, for Donald Trump to turn his attention slightly away from Joe Biden and turn it on to Kennedy, and of course, for Kennedy to stop his attention going to Biden. And instead, now there's a back and forth between Donald Trump and RFK. Look, in the end, though, Joe Biden's numbers are still sinking. And that is because Joe Biden's policies have really brought great harm to many sectors of the American economy and many people. So this is all going to settle out the way that it should in front of the American people. You can't hide from the truth.
Yeah, we'll see if this actually comes to pass. I'm kind of in the camp of I'll have to see it to believe it. We'll see what comes in the coming months.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.